Hello, friends. I've had some really deep and juicy and interesting conversations with some friends lately about the subject of authenticity, about being fully authentic, about being uncensored, simply living, coherently, in coherence inside with who we are, without that filter, that censoring, and being able to just fully speak from our experience. And I personally it's something I've been learning over the years, and a lot of times it's very scary. And that's what I want to talk about today because this is part of the reason that the world is not expressing itself authentically is because when we do, we always get in trouble. I mean, just think about it in your life, even from when you were small, and when we were little kids, we're just ourselves, we're expressing ourselves. And then, the damper comes down, you're too much, be quiet, do as I say, whatever it is. So we learn to swallow our authenticity, our truth, who we really are. And then we live in this contracted state, and we never really fully are able to be fully ourselves. I think a lot of us at this point who've done a lot of deeper inner work are able to be a lot more ourselves than when before we started doing this inner work. But again, in myself, I feel I'm very authentic. When I'm speaking here, I'm speaking from coherence. I'm not censoring, I'm not editing, I'm not preparing. It's just what comes out. And that is also how I am in my life. But there is still a part that I am aware of where I am filtering. I'm not letting it out 100%. Not all the time, but at times, maybe the good time part of the time. And so when I had that conversation about this recently with several friends in two different settings, actually, it seems like that's where a lot of us are at that edge now, where we have done so much work and we feel so ourselves. And yet, and yet, and that part where we're still holding back, that's where we are afraid, of course, still, like all the other times as we've worked through this, that there is still this fear that we are going to get in trouble, that people are going to get upset with us, make us wrong, tell us we can't speak like that, and that they get hurt by it. I mean, these are very, very sensitive layers that we all carry. So when we were talking about that, it really became clear why it is that we are so afraid, because everybody is afraid to really hear the truth of who we are unfiltered, because there are still these parts in us that are unhealed, that will take it personally, that are very sensitive and cannot handle just speaking directly from my heart or my core or whatever it is. It 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 does something to their nervous system. It does something to my nervous system. If somebody is too direct, where it feels harsh, I notice that there is this knee-jerk reaction in my nervous system, and I don't like it. And then the tendency is, which we all do probably, is to say, that this person is really harsh. and maybe to avoid them in the future. These are things that we all do, my friends, in our own, you know, unique way. And that's why we ourselves are still afraid to be fully authentic, because we know that most people are not yet able to receive that kind of authenticity. So that means that everybody is still walking around contracted, holding themselves back, not really speaking the full truth. Maybe 80%. That's pretty good, actually, right? Maybe even 90 or sometimes 100. But when they do 100, then it's like, whoa, what's wrong with you? And I do know some people who are out in the limelight, who are very, very direct, completely unfiltered. They couldn't care less about what you think about them, and they're just saying it as it is. I think it comes out very harsh at times. And even though I can hear the truth in it, it's like, do you have to be so harsh around it? So this is what's going on in our consciousness, right? We are all part of this soup. This is part of the matrix soup, where we have all these unhealed, unintegrated parts inside of us, and we all do. And those are the ones that react to somebody who's very authentic, direct, says it the way it is, whether it's harsh or not. Not everybody is harsh in speaking their truth. But if we have a very sensitive nervous system, you bet it's going to be perceived as harsh. And then we put the label out on the other that they're harsh. And if they're sensitive themselves, which most people still are, then they will notice that, oh, I guess I can't just speak like that. So I have to tone down, I have to buffer it, I have to filter myself. So here we are, my friends. We're all doing it. We are all, I would think all, but there might be a few who are not. But most people are judging others when they're being fully themselves, when they're standing up in their sovereignty, when they are uncensored. There is a deep, deep tendency in us to judge them and call them some kind of a label that will make them shrink back into submission. The reason why I find it important to really bring this up is that when we can see that we are doing it ourselves, the reason that we are afraid to be fully 100% authentic and direct doesn't have to be harsh at all. I would say the more we embrace fully who we are and then are able to express that from that place, it doesn't have to be harsh at all. The harshness comes when we express ourselves. The harshness comes from breaking through a barrier inside of ourselves when we have not fully yet embraced our own authenticity. So there's still something inside of us that, oh, I'm gonna say it, and then it comes out harsh. It can do. So it's real. I mean, it all comes down to working on our own inner unhealed, unintegrated, unresolved parts that are just little reaction buttons to what happens around us. And it's easier to say, you're harsh than to go like, wow, I'm still very sensitive to when somebody just says it the way it is for them. That's where we need to work. That's what we need to work with and on. And when we do it in here, it will also help us feel more okay to be more authentic. But when we know that people are not ready to receive that kind of authenticity and transparency, you might also say, what's the point? as I'm saying that, I don't think I have a direct answer at this point, like how are we gonna clear up this mess that we find ourselves in and that we are all contributing to, every single one of us, maybe an exception here and there. But for the most part, there is a tendency to hold ourselves back from being authentic because we are afraid what others will say. We are afraid that they're going to judge us and label us. And that's exactly what we do ourselves. So here we have another mirror. I've been talking a lot about mirrors lately for a long time, but more so lately. Here we have another mirror. I am doing myself what I judge others for doing. What do we do now? Please comment. Let us know how this lands for you and how you deal with that. And again, I can speak for myself. As I've been working through a lot of my fears of being me, of being seen, of speaking my truth, being authentic, a lot of those layers of fear, they have been dissolving. And remember, fear is the matrix, right? Fear is the smear. You can go back and listen to some of those videos. So I know when there's fear in me, I know the matrix is trying to hook me. And I'm aware of that. I'm not always aware of it, but I'm more aware of it day by day by day. And so when I know that that fear is there, I own that. It's like this is either me grabbing onto that and whatever, making a story out of it, or I can say, no, no, I will not be afraid to speak my truth, even if others don't like it. That takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. But what also takes courage and compassion is to really see that we are doing that. And it's usually because we are afraid, right? They're a mirror of us. They're standing up and being authentic and sovereign. And we are afraid of doing that ourselves, so we judge them for doing it. This keeps us in a cycle. It keeps us in a cycle of not being authentic, of not being in our sovereignty. It keeps us in a cycle of always checking the outside. It's as if we need the outside as some kind of a confirmation for us to be authentic. Now, what I have learned from that is that I want to be the mirror, the loving mirror, a video I did, to be the loving mirror instead of the judging mirror. So that if somebody comes as being very authentic and it might startle me, I want to be the loving mirror. I want to step out of that fear and say, that's so cool that you're being so real with me. And then I can say, being authentic, it's like I notice I get startled with such authenticity and such directness. But I want that because I want to be like that also, even when it's hard and it's difficult to be really authentic. There's times when it's really easy, and it's a good time to practice. But there's times where you go like, you know that if you're being authentic with somebody, you know how it's going to land, right? They are not going to like it. They're going to either, fully contract and avoid you, or they're going to be really upset with you, or anything in between, but you know there's going to be a reaction. So how do we deal with this? I think one good step is to, if I have something that's really authentic that I want to say to somebody, I think it's a smart idea to kind of set the tone or prepare the field and say, I have something that's really very important for me to say. And I want to just make sure that you're okay with that and that we can both be with whatever shows up for both of us. So that instead of doing the old way where we just like, I don't want to hear it, or it's all your stuff, whatever we do to deflect it, we create a space where we both are willing to own our own experience, because that's where the work is. That is the smear in the mirror that we need to clear. It's ours. I've been thinking it would probably be a nice thing to have some kind of a group setting where we practice this. I haven't thought it through yet if it's something I want to offer online or maybe just in my local community. But when we learn to just be fully authentic in a setting where authenticity is welcomed, no matter what, where we decide we're not going to make the other wrong, we're going to own our own reaction. It's as if we can create some kind of a bubble that can start growing and touch more of that fear, matrix fear, um, sensitivity, right? Where we are afraid of it. So if we create a space where we can do it together with full permission, not making anybody wrong, but being fully responsible for our own experience, I think we can create some space where more of us suddenly feel okay in being really authentic. And I also think it's very important to stay connected with these people if we need it, that we always have somebody where we can just be fully authentic, because this is a practice. This is not normal in the world. This is not what people want. They want to stay small and contracted and then blame others who are not, right? We need to break that pattern. We really do. So I know we can't do much here today, but I would welcome you to reach out if you would like some kind of a group setting, or if you want to work with me one-on-one with that, we can certainly do that. But it's something we really need to do very consciously to to normalize being fully authentic. And I guarantee you there are a lot of layers that we don't even know about because it's so automatic that we just contract and then we don't even know why. So if we can start, dissolving these layers so we know what it is that holds us back, and then we can rise up from that as more authentic and sovereign, then we can have more people walking around in the world who are sovereign beings, who are connected to their truth, their divinity, their raw expression, unfiltered. And it doesn't mean that we have to become harsh or um, yeah, or even angry or something, because there is fear of that. I think in all of us, when somebody's being so direct, right? And just notice in yourself what happens with you. Do you shrink back? This shrinking back, we need to own that. If we want a world where we can be ourselves, guess where we need to start? So let's do that. Let's consider this, and feel free to comment, feel free to like and share in the comments below, and let's see if this is something we can bring more aliveness to, where we're going to normalize being authentic. And the more it's normalized, the less charge there will be to be it. Okay, my friends, that's it for today. And I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you again soon.